Welcome back to my movie review series. Today, I'll be doing the review on the 2001 DreamWorks movie, and this one is Shrek. The movie is based on the 1990 fairy tales picture book of the same name by William Steig. Premiered on May 18, 2001. The movie is airing on NBC, Syfy, The CW, TBS, TNT, Cartoon Network, HBO Family, Nickelodeon, Nick Jr., VH1, Comedy Central, Disney Channel, Freeform, and streaming on Peacock, Netflix, HBO Max, Hulu, It's Beta on Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime Video. Shrek is an antisocial and highly territorial green ogre who loves the solitude of his swamp. His life is interrupted after the vertically challenged Lord Farquaad of Julok exiles multiple fairy tale creatures to Shrek's swamp. Angered by the intrusion, he decides to pay Farquaad a visit and demand they be moved elsewhere. He reluctantly allows the talkative donkey, who was exiled as well, to tag along and guide him to Julok. Meanwhile, Farquaad is presented with Snow White's magic mirror, who tells him that in order to truly become a king, he must marry a princess. Farquaad chooses Princess Fiona, who is imprisoned in a castle tower guarded by a female dragon. Unwilling to perform the task himself, he organizes a tournament, in which the winner will receive the privilege of rescuing Fiona. Shrek and Donkey arrive during the tournament and defeat Farquaad's knights. Farquaad proclaims them champions, and negotiates with Shrek to have the fairy tale creatures relocated if he rescues Fiona. Shrek and Donkey travel to the castle and are attacked by Dragon, who corners Donkey. In desperation, he sweet-talks her and she falls in love with him. Meanwhile, Shrek locates Fiona, who is appalled at his lack of romanticism. They flee the castle after rescuing Donkey. But when Shrek removes his helmet and reveals that he is an ogre, Fiona refuses to go to Julok unless Farquaad himself arrives, so Shrek simply carries her against her will. That night, after setting up camp, Fiona goes off alone and Shrek confides with Donkey about his frustration with being feared and rejected by others because of his appearance. Fiona overhears and decides to be kind to Shrek. The next day, they encounter Robin Hood and his band of merry men, and Fiona dispatches them easily with martial arts when they attack. Shrek is impressed with Fiona, and they begin to fall in love. Will true love be able to bloom between a lovely princess and a hideous ogre? The story is amazingly well written, as not only is it very funny, clever, and witty with its humor, but it's also pretty action-packed and adventurous, has a great level of heart and charm. It does stay true to the spirit and tone of the original book despite all the huge differences. Overall, it's very unique and imaginative. The parodies and satires of classic fairy tales are well handled. There are some neat twists and spins, and it has a very solid and well-told message about self-acceptance and the meaning of true love. However, it can be slightly predictable due to how the plot is structured. The movie has a very strong sense of humor which leads to some very funny moments and jokes, such as the witty banter and dialogue between the characters, the snarky comebacks and one-liners, the gags and slapstick, the parodies of the classic tales, the adult and dark humor, the jabs at Disney that are pretty subtle, and even some of the gross-out humor. The movie also has some pretty solid action scenes that can be pretty fun, but also be suspenseful and intense at times, such as Shrek and Donkey fighting off Farquaad's men at the tournament, Shrek and Donkey's first encounter with Dragon, Shrek, Donkey, and Fiona escaping from the keep, Fiona fighting Robin Hood and his merry men, and the squabble at Farquaad's wedding ceremony. The film also has some pretty strong heart to it, which does lead to some pretty heartfelt and charming moments, such as the blooming romance between Shrek and Fiona, the friendship between Shrek and Donkey, and Fiona learning to accept herself. The animation is amazingly well done, as it does look pretty solid even though it does look a little dated. The characters all have very solid designs that are accompanied by some pretty fluid and lively movements. The backgrounds and settings are very well crafted, as they do have a great amount of detail to them, and there are some very solid effects such as the lighting, the lava, the fire, the water, and so on. The characters are all very well written and likable, as they do have a great amount of chemistry, dynamics, and development. Shrek is a very solid and likable protagonist who does have a well-told arc throughout the movie, as he starts off very antisocial and dismissive to others, but as he goes on his journey with Donkey and Fiona, he starts to open himself up to them, tells them about why he wants to be left alone, and starts to warm up to them. The supporting characters are also very likable, as they do have a good part to play in the story, whether it's major or minor, such as the talkative and loyal Donkey, who's a solid comic relief, the snarky and fierce Fiona, who also has a nice arc throughout the film, and is a solid love interest, and there are the more minor characters who do also get a good laugh, such as Dragon, Ginny, Thelonious, the Magic Mirror, Robin Hood, and some of the fairy tale creatures like the Big Bad Wolf, the Three Little Pigs, Pinocchio, and the Three Blind Mice. Farquaad is a pretty solid villain, as while he can be pretty funny, the whole reason he wants to marry is not out of love, but only so he can become a king and rule Juluk as such, which shows that he's very self-centered and uncaring. Also, he is very prejudiced toward the fairy tale creatures given how he treats them. The voice acting is very well done and does result in some pretty solid performances, such as Mike Myers as Shrek, Eddie Murphy as Donkey, Cameron Diaz as Fiona, John Lithgow as Farquaad, and more. The music is very well done, as the score by Harry Gregson Williams and John Powell's score is well composed and does capture the movie's comedic and heartfelt tone, and the song selection of the movie is pretty solid and does fit the movie very well, such as All Star, I'm a Believer, Best Years of Our Lives, Bad Reputation, Hallelujah, I'm on My Way, My Beloved Monster, You Belong to Me, as well as a couple of new songs made for the film, such as Stay Home and It Is You I Have Loved. Verdict: 12 out of 10. This is a very clever and well-crafted movie that still holds up all these years later, and is well deserving of winning the first ever Oscar for Best Animated Feature.